Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 111.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow game, Jay Massey.
Hello out there. This is Jay Massey, your host, and welcome to yet another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm so glad that you take your time to invest it here, and then the goal is to produce a return, as you know. So return on the time that you invest with us here, I hope, is paying massive dividends for you out there in the real world as you go out there, take this information and multiply it, if you will. Now, I have a question for you. Did you know that 80% of Americans hate their jobs and only 1 out of 3 people say they are very happy? Now, hopefully that's not you, but if it is, today's guest is going to be able to help you with that. Today's guest, Jeff Steinmann, was one of those people who hated his job until he finally left, and I love the way he says this, he finally left his successful but soul-sucking corporate career after 15 years to pursue a lifestyle that would let him spend his time, now how he wants, instead of being a slave to a job. Here's the thing. Today, we're going to figure out something very simple that I know a lot of you want to do. Today, we're going to figure out how to quit working. Please help me welcome Mr. Jeff Steinmann. Jeff, you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm glad that you are here. I think everybody wants to know how to quit working, but before we get there, I've got a question for you. I mean, we all start out, with the same level playing field. We all start somewhere. And I've often said this, that, entrepreneurs today, you're an author, you've got a consulting practice, a real estate, a whole bunch of things going on. But before all that was going on, just like superheroes, you had an alter ego, a beginning identity, the origin story. I want to know, before you had all this going on, before you were teaching us how to not work, what were you doing and who was Jeff Steinmann?
Well, I was born in a small town in southern Illinois. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't want me to go back that far.
Well, you could if it's relevant. It's fine by me. Some people are like, oh, cool, he's from Illinois like me. This is awesome. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, well, no, but just like everybody else, I was brought up with this idea. In my town, there was this kind of major highway that ran. It used to be alongside the town. And, the town was on the one side, but what happened over time was the town sort of grew, and there was more town on the other side of this highway. And the houses on the new side were much newer than they were in the small kind of probably turn of the century town that I lived in. So we lived on the old side, and really there was this mentality that the rich people lived on the new side and the poor people lived on this side. I think it was the north side of the highway. And really from day one, I was raised with the mentality that, we're one of the poor people and they're the rich people, and that the rich people, and I do that in quotes because that was so much how it was talked about. They're on the other side, and we're not one of them, and they're different. And from a really early age, I remember being just the type of person that I had to question everything. Like, I'm supposed to eat this crap that I don't like. Why? And no matter what it was, I was always thinking, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do things the way that we do them? And and I said, I knew from a very early age that I was going to do something different.
Got it. Got it. Now,
So I went to college. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Well, there's just a couple of things that I think are already really cool
Yeah.
to point out is because I think many of us get exposed to, and it's nobody's necessarily fault, but we get exposed to in a certain environment. And the environment you're describing, I think many of us can relate to. I know I can, but there's a certain, I like the way you said it, the mentality of the poor, meaning that there was a certain way of thinking and being just in general. And I love the questioning of everything because that's usually where the freedom begins for most of us. But keep going.
Yeah, well, so I went off to college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And not only that, when I was in college, they were doing something to me that I couldn't get over. They were trying to teach me stuff that I didn't care about. And,
I hear that's popular these days.
yeah, and boy, that didn't go over well with me. So one thing led to another. I ended up bouncing around colleges for about 13 years until I finally got my degree.
That's a new plan. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I call it a 13-year plan.
Hey, whatever works, as long as
And
you
it
get
worked
there,
out.
right, I guess.
It worked out okay. But what happened was, fortunately, the middle of that period was the late 90s, and then we had the tech boom, and that was back in the days when all you had to do was take a class in Visual Basic, and you could get a great job in the technology industry.
Right.
So I'd been doing, I had sort of fallen into this customer support job at a small company, and eventually ended up moving to a larger company and doing computer programming. Then it ended up doing systems analysis, and then finally project and program management, and really worked my way up the ranks. And then so that ran concurrent with trying to get my degree and going to all these different, evening and weekend programs and various different things I tried. But I ended up, it was about late 2010s, right? So like 2009 to 2011, I was kind of working this job, and I basically had achieved pretty much all of the success in the corporate world that I kind of thought that I wanted, because I was making good money. I had a nice big house and was able to kind of do pretty much what I wanted. Not everything, not anything, but I was pretty happy with the money, and I was pretty happy with the progression that I was making through my career. And then I remember very specifically one day I was sitting at my boss's desk, or maybe there was another level, I can't remember anymore, but at a very high level person's desk in their office, with him on a conference call with some other people in different parts of the country. And we're sitting there going through this pretty intense kind of a situation about this project that we were putting in place, something pretty significant we were doing, and there was some kind of issue with it. And then the guy's office he was in, the boss's boss, his secretary comes in and says, "Mike, you gotta take this call. There's an emergency." So and it's not like a real health, not like a real health emergency, like a work emergency. Right. I always like to put the difference, like not like somebody's not something that really mattered, but something right inside the company. So he says, "Okay, well we gotta stop this meeting." And he picks up the phone, and he gets this information, and he just slams the phone down, and he lets the string of obscenities go. And this man was 2 weeks from his retirement at this point. And at that point, I kind of sat back and I said, so if I stay here and I keep moving up the ladder, this is what 2 weeks from retirement looks like. And it was really kind of at that point that I kind of made the decision, and I said, this is just, I really have to do something different. And I'd been looking for different options all along. I think by that point, I had already begun doing a little bit of real estate. But I finally started to say, this just doesn't make sense. I got to do something different. And that's when I got really serious about it. And you know about this, and I'm sure you talk about this on your show. But at some point, something sort of flips over in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like this. It's like this. Oh, okay. This can't be just something that I research online and listen to podcasts and say, well, maybe that would be nice someday. That's interesting. It was no. This has to happen.
Right.
And when that switch flipped over, I got really serious about it, and it was probably less than a year later at that point that I finally resigned from that job and started my first company, which was a business and marketing consulting company, which eventually led me to really find out kind of what I really truly care about in this world, and that's figuring out better ways to do life and figuring out ways to push through all of these kind of silly notions that we have about how life is supposed to be and what we should be doing, and get to the other side where life is so much more satisfying, so that I don't have to be one of the, those 2 out of 3 or the 20% that are just not happy with what they're doing. And gosh, to be able to help other people to do that too, I mean, that's really what it's all about. So that was the genesis of my book called How to Quit Working.
Got it. And you know what what I have often said to people is that I think most of us are wasting our time at a job because we're not engaged. Yeah. You're more fully engaged in something that you care about. I mean, there's so many places and things to see and do and people to help and serve that if we just reallocated our time and how that happened and how money was earned, etc., we could go out there and become difference makers. That usually the very difference that we're complaining about, we're the one best suited to solve that problem, but we can't. Yeah, we have to go to
work. Sure.
It's just interesting. So here's the question. Because you said something that I think many people have had to deal with, especially those that may hate their job or not exactly happy about it. You said you were happy with the money and you were happy with the progression that you were making, but yet there was still a sense of unfulfillment somewhere. I mean, because someone listening to us right now could be very happy with their money, or they could be happy with the progression. Sometimes, hey, it's all about the personal growth, what I'm learning. Yeah, they don't pay me but peanuts. But I'm happy with that for the moment. What do you think it was that was missing that you have now found?
Something to be excited about in the future. It is a key piece, right? Because as I kept looking, I kept looking forward, and it was always like, well, okay, so there's this next piece. I'm going to get this promotion, or this is going to happen, and that was exciting for a while. Right, because it fed my need, my internal human need to be validated. Right, whenever you're promoted, then someone else is anointing you and saying you are good.
Right,
it's like they have a little wand, they tap your head and they say you're good. And then as humans, like, we love that, we need that, we feel good about it. We put it on Facebook, we call our friends and family, and we tell them, "Yay, I got a promotion," and we feel good about it. And that works for a while. I mean, let's face it. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, that for, at least for a while, that's going to work. That's going to keep you happy for most people. And it did for me. I kind of glossed over the 7, 8, 9, maybe close to 10 years that I was fairly happy and fulfilled in that job. Yeah. But at some point, it's like you hit these milestones, and you keep seeing you keep. It's like, okay, I hit that salary level, I hit that position, I hit that title, I hit that responsibility. I keep hitting them, and I don't keep getting any happier.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go, or occasionally we go, well, maybe if I had another $100,000 this year, that'll. Yeah. But that's not always the case. That's not always the case.
Yeah, well, and then when you get that enough, and when it comes to money, I mean, I completely agree that there is a certain point at which more money does make you happier because it makes you less stressed. But study after study after study have shown, and the number varies from $60,000 to $80,000 a year, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money. That's really where the happiness kind of drops. The happiness increase kind of drops off. And I was weak. I was making well more than that. So I was really seeing where, those incremental differences just aren't doing it for me.
Okay, hold on. So you just dropped something there. I need to let's pick that up. You said
Okay.
some from 60 to $80,000, unpack that a little bit, because I'm like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, there's some studies out there. There's multiple studies that have been done, and I wish I had one at hand that I could cite, and I can send you one afterwards if you like. But there's been studies that have done, and they've said when you go from 20,000 to 30,000, for example, you get a little bit happier. Because you can imagine in most parts of the country, 20,000 and 30,000, neither of those are great numbers to live off of, but 30,000 is better than 20, right? You're eating slightly better.
That's
You're a
true.
little bit less worried about the bills. And then 30 to 40, as you go up, you do get a lesser sense of stress, and you do get some enjoyment. And you get, depending on where you are in the country, maybe if you get in that 50, 60,000, well, then maybe you can start looking at vacations every year. There's things about those increases that make us happier. But when we get to, and I've heard, I believe two different numbers. I believe one is 60 and one is 80. But when you reach a certain number, then that happiness, and if you think of it like a chart where it's kind of going up and to the right, when you reach that number, it really levels off, and that increased money doesn't make you any happier. 100 to 120 isn't a big move in your happiness, isn't really a move in your happiness at all. 1 million to 2 million isn't really a big move in your happiness.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, because I always like to point that out, because we're so caught up in this world. We're so caught up in this idea that money is so important, right? And we're so caught up in, money's going to make me happy. And what do you need? That whole thing, like, when you ask somebody, hey, how you doing today? And they make this off the cuff remark. It's like, oh, I'd be better if I had $1 million, and little things like that. I mean, we say that in jest, right? But in reality, on some
Until
level,
they
we
have $1
believe
million
it.
bucks.
Yeah.
Because after a while, I mean, all I'm going to say is I can, on this topic, I can remember the first time I've told, when when we was first getting started, I did 11 wholesale transactions in a 7-day period. And I was earning, at that time, it was $2,000 a transaction. So that was a lot in my head. At least I thought. Before that week, I was like, oh my gosh, that much money in a week, that would be nuts. After that week, I was like, that really wasn't a whole lot of money. But, so, and I find this interesting, because you bring up what I believe to be the quintessential piece that many of us haven't defined for ourselves, is that we haven't defined the difference between standard of living versus quality of life. And those are different things. I mean, you could have a low standard of living but have high quality of life if you're living close to what you value. And I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say How to Quit Working is just a guide on literally how to get closer to that quality of life as opposed to that standard of living.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we start with in the book is looking at, where is that place at that the world has already identified that you provide value, right? So where is it that people come to you looking for your help or your advice or your guidance? I'm sure that if I asked you that question, Jay, you'd say, well, people ask me for help with real estate investing.
Yes.
Everybody,
Yeah,
right? If somebody wants to pick your brain, that's probably what it's going to be about. And you have many other things that many other types of value that you provide to the world, but that's one example.
But you know what's funny is that a few years ago, no one wanted to pick my brain at all. But and the difference is today is that we've gone out there, we've taken numbers of risks and learned some things, and we've become more valuable to the marketplace. And I like the concept that you bring up when you say, how does the marketplace tell you already that you provide value? I would want to dig more into that very concept, because I believe strongly that there's a number of people right now listening to you and I who don't think they have anything to value. And they're like, well, I don't know what else I would, quote unquote, do if I didn't do my job.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that breaks my heart, because what we've done is, we've created this society in this world where we've got this, and this is not just in the US, I've found this to be pretty much universally true around the world. But we've created this paradigm where, we think that the only way that we can provide value to the world is by taking the most precious commodity that we have, which is our time, and selling it to somebody else, doing something that we probably don't like. And then we think that, like, the best way to do that is to sell that time doing something that we kind of tolerate. Okay. That's the idea. Find a job you like.
Right.
That's that whole idea. But I think that's tragic. And when you raise children and I mean, when I say raise children, I mean like how all of us were raised when we were children. When we're raised with that belief, how could we even in our head say, oh, okay, how am I valuable to the world other than just selling my time? Right? It's not even a question that we think to ask. We don't even have the frame of reference or any way of thinking about that question that makes sense. And and that's part of what I really want to bring to the world with How to Quit Working is, that everybody has value, and you have value that is deeper, and it's more valuable and more complicated than this silly little idea of you just have to sell the hours in your day to somebody else to make money.
Oh, I so wish. Right now, I just hope every parent listening sends this straight to every one of their teenagers, because that was one of the first things. It was the Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. That was that was the gateway book for me too. Oh, okay. Oh, that's awesome. That was the book.
Gateway drug book. Yeah.
I know, right? It was the one that, and after reading it, I was mad. I was angry because no one had told me before. I was really, really mad. And then I had to say, okay, that's what was. Now what is what's going to happen now? What are you going to do now that you know this information? And I was so mad. It was not even funny because for me, I was bumping around in industries that I had no business in, that couldn't make full use of the talents that I do have. And I can only empathize with anyone who's right now feeling like, man, they're fish out of water. They don't fit in. It took me decades to realize that I was not the employee type. I'm hoping that this conversation here with Jeff is setting you free. So let's ask that common question, because I know somebody's thinking it. All right, great. That would have been awesome, Jeff, if I could have had that right when I was in high school, and because then I could have made all these wonderful changes. And on a side note, that's one of the things that irritates me about college, is that it robs some of our young people of the time where they could, quote unquote, afford to live on peanuts and it not be a burden, when they could go out there and create value in different ways and build something that would be great. But that's a whole nother
it's such I've never heard anybody say it that way, Jay, but it's like, your college years are the perfect time to take a risk. What are you going to get sued for everything you own? Nothing. You have nothing.
You can have my iPhone. Yay. That's all I got. It's just, but they get robbed of that time because they're buying into this other system. So, but for the person who's, further along, how on earth do they make that switch? How did you make the switch? Was it just you woke up one day and said, that's it, I'm done? Was it planned? Was it, I'm just frustrated and I quit? If they've got kids, what are they going to do? How do they quit?
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
Excellent. Now, you're probably wondering, Jay, let me hear him tell me how to quit my job. We'll get to that in just a second. One of the things I want to make sure everybody is updated about and knows that I'm excited about. I'm excited about two things right now. One, we are still in the middle of launching a new mastermind group all around multifamily investing. If you've ever wanted to participate in anything quite like that, this will likely be one of the few opportunities where you can do exactly that. I've never been able to actually repeat any of my mastermind groups because it's kind of difficult to put together 12 consecutive weeks or 12 close enough together weeks in my schedule to where I can invest that time in a group form and help people master any one particular topic. So for those of you who want to make something like that happen for yourself and you're wondering how do I buy properties? How do I bridge that gap from everything that I've learned to actually everything that I'd like to earn and more importantly get done? Because you got to go out there in the marketplace and attack it in a certain way and make those relationships happen. That's what we're going to be doing in the mastermind group, and I'm excited. Go over to cashflowdiary.com/multifamily. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/multifamily, and you will be able to get at least 3 hours of complimentary content all around a multifamily. And for some of you, if you want to join us, you probably want to move really, really quickly because it is filling up fast. Now, with that being said, I'm also excited to say to you guys that I have been listening to the final versions of the audiobook. And after we get done with this round of quality control, and I guess the Audible people have to do theirs as well, then we will be done and you will have your copy soon. I hope you love it. Get this. It turns out that we ended up with almost an extra hour of bonus content. So content that's really not available to many other places. And you guys who are on the audio book will get it, which is awesome. So if you want to know more about that or make sure that you're on the list to know when it is out, go to cashflowdiary.com/audio, AUDIO, or send a text message to 949-682-3565. The keyword is audio. So the keyword in the text message is audio, AUDIO, and that will get you the same thing. Enough about all that. Let's get you back to the interview.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's really begun to focus a lot more on that in the How to Quit Working platform because most folks have kids, most folks have bills to pay. And really what I recommend to people is you've got to kind of have two parallel tracks going. And
hold on, Jeff. You forgot. Most folks like to eat too. So let's just
I got you.
Even if they don't have bills and don't have kids, they still want to eat. They've gotten used to that. They want to make sure that still happens.
Yes. And we're going to make sure that still happens. So that's why we're going to do two parallel tracks, right? So you got to keep working that job. And then on the side, you've got to start to figure out, you can't build up a business. If you're working a job and you got kids, you probably got some other responsibilities. You can't build a full business on the side. It's just not realistic. What you have to do on the side is you got to take that small amount of time that you have and you've got to use it as effectively as you possibly can. And the most effective thing that you can do, the biggest thing that will move you from having a job to successfully having a business is identifying a product or service that people want and proving that product or service. So that means figuring out where is there a place in the market where there are some people who want this thing that I can provide. And while you're still working, you've got to get that in some, and the beautiful thing is it's so easy to do a quick and dirty kind of a test or trial product these days. So you've got to figure out where those people are that want that thing that you can provide, and you've got to provide it to them, and you've got to collect some money from them to prove out that you really truly have a product or service that people want. And once you have that product or service that people want, the rest of business building is details.
Oh, goodness, Jeff, I'm beside myself with excitement right now because you just underscored every reason why I love real estate. is because the proof of concept is already there. It's not a matter of, I don't have to be smart enough to come up and invent something. But on the other side of that is, because of technology, people are telling Google all their problems. All you got to figure out is pick a problem and solve it. And it's so right there. And once you've got it, everything else is a matter of scale. I love keep going. This is good.
Well, and I think that the thing, and first of all, to your point on real estate, there's so many reasons why real estate is. I mean, I'm sure we could do a 3-hour show on reasons why real estate is such an awesome thing to do. Like
only 3 hours? Are you sure?
You're right. You're right.
We would have to cut it short.
3 days or something like that. Well, but we should plan that. We want to do that next week.
Yeah, right. There you go. Hey, everybody tune in. We're just going to talk for 3 days straight. It'd be funny.
But anyway, so, when you're building a business and when you're building it on the side, and I was actually just in an article on Success Magazine about this, but when you're doing it on the side, you've got to approach it differently. And you've got to approach it, number one, from the standpoint of realizing that, like you said, you want to eat. Right. So you got to keep that job, and you don't have a lot of extra time. You have very little extra time. And that's why you've got to approach it in a way of getting to the most important thing and the most critical thing and the thing that's going to move your business forward the most. And that is identifying that product or service and the people that want it and proving that idea so that you've got something that people want. You already know that. And that takes away so much of the risk and uncertainty of starting a business. But what most people do and what most gurus teach you to do is not identify that product or service first, but instead to build a website or to go out and get Twitter followers or to build out some giant social media presence or to learn how to do public speaking or learn how to do networking or learn how to do online ads or whatever it may be. But there's so much stuff out there that says, let's do all of this business building stuff when you don't have a foundation to stand on. And the foundation is that product or service, right? Because when you begin building out that, so when you go out there and you want to quit your job so you get that product that's like, here's how to make $1 billion on social media or whatever it is.
In 7 seconds or less.
In 7 seconds or less, yes, because it wouldn't be worth it if it took more than 7 seconds. So, so you go out there and you start trying to use that product, but you don't, and that might be a great product, right? But you don't have that fundamental. You don't have that product or service that you already know that people want. So what the hell are you going to tweet?
I know. Oh goodness. The funny thing about what you're saying right now, and it's still hard for some people to believe, is I didn't even have a website till last year at all. And we had done hundreds and hundreds of real estate transactions. No website, no social media presence, none of that stuff. I mean, I have a Facebook account, but it's not like we were trying to get business or anything.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's still today, we're not the best at it. We're learning, we're getting better. It's just funny how what you're saying is that we go straight for the tools, but we don't even, and I think, I want to hear your opinion. I think the reason that we accept, and this is the key words, this is the reason that we accept that is because it feeds right into our fear and prevents us from doing what we know we must go do, which is sell something.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, you totally hit the nail right on the head. And this is one of the things that I advise clients to do. And it's never a fun conversation. But yeah, I'm sorry, but you got to pick up the phone and you got to call some people.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, and for all of our introverts out there, I am so sorry to break that to you.
Yeah. The funny thing is I'm naturally an introvert. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth.
Now that surprises me.
But you can learn when it's food on the line, you will do what you got to do to eat. The challenge, I think, is that most of us don't see it that seriously, especially if we already have a job, because that comfort is just enough and just addicting enough to make you not want to try a little bit harder. Well, I don't really have to because I can still eat. And then until that gets threatened, i.e. we get laid off, we don't do anything. about it. And that, anyway, I'm gonna start ranting in a minute. But
I love ranting.
I'm like,
I'll jump in there with you.
I have a feeling you and I are very similar on this topic, simply because I think what would you say have been the top 3 benefits that you've experienced from releasing yourself from the corporate environment? What do you think? Top 3 benefits?
Oh, the thing that just makes me so excited about it is that there just aren't any limitations anymore.
Mm.
You know, you look at the world, and there's no more of this rationalizing and thinking, oh, well, you know, let's see, I'd like to do that, but well, I'd have to think about, can I get off work, and how would I pay the bills if I went, I want to go spend like 2 months at a monastery meditating at some point in my life, hopefully very soon, right? And if you're working a full-time job, I mean, how do you even make that work, right?
Yeah, the TPS reports are going to actually ask you to come back into
absolutely, absolutely. But now when I have something like that I want to do, it's like, oh, I just have to structure things to make that happen. I mean, it's totally doable, and I love the idea that there's all these limitations that are removed. So number one is, I'll definitely answer your question the way you asked it. I want to be a good interview subject. So number one is freedom.
Yeah,
absolutely freedom. Number 2 is the income cap is lifted. Right, it doesn't matter how well you do in the corporate world or how well you do in your job. There's still a pay scale, right? And there's still an HR department that has a top. There's on your job, there's a top, there's a bottom, and there's a top. When you hit the top, you're at the top. That's it.
Yep.
So freedom, lifestyle freedom, and lifting the cap on income, and then I think finally is just being able to work with the people that you like and not having to work with the people that you don't like. I mean, that maybe should be number one. I mean,
ooh, you just open up another can of worms right there.
Because you're like, I mean, does this ever happen to you, Jay, where you're like, you're in some sort of situation, you're getting ready to go into a deal with somebody, and you're just like, I just don't freaking like you.
Yep.
And you're like, I'm this isn't going to happen.
Yep.
Because I don't like you.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily say that. You can.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently you do. That's okay. That's cool.
It depends. I mean, hey, I have been known to not be gentle. That's all I'm going to say. And it just is what it is. I sometimes I can remember I'm thinking of a particular broker where that's why I just told him, I was like, look, dude, I don't like you. I don't like you. And now the funny thing is that after telling him that, he straightened up, and now he's, been someone that has helped us, and we've, worked together, and it's been fine. Okay. But I love all of, I really love the choice that you're saying. And it's specifically about the income cap, something that we've been doing recently. And this has just been blowing my mind, is that once you begin to become excellent at identifying problems and knowing how to create a solution, you can begin to plan your income, not just remove the cap, but you can say, okay, because I can ask myself this question: how can we generate another, let's say, $200,000, $250,000 of revenue this month? What could we do? And then I can go, and my team, we come together and we can figure out, here's something we could do. Right? Or 50,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is. The point is you can ask yourself that question, and you have the freedom to put whatever plan pops in your crazy mind together, test it, and find out until it works. And I think that's probably the funnest part for me. I don't know if funnest is the word, but whatever. The point is I enjoy that a ton.
Yeah. Like just having the ability, like you said, to just make that decision. Like, what are we going to do today? What are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen?
Now, so, and underlying all of this, I mean, when you've got how to quit working as the title, and I'm thinking of this, I'm in my head, it's not like you're not earning money, because sometimes we could make that correlation. Oh, if he's not working, he's just laying around doing nothing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
I'm going to sleep right after we get done with this.
Well, that is, hey, it's an option, and it's totally fine. You don't have to fill out no permission slip. You don't have to wait. If the guy in the cubicle next to you wants to go to sleep, all of that stuff.
There is consequence, though.
There's definitely a consequence.
Just because you can make the choice doesn't mean there's no consequence.
Yeah, indeed. But so my question, though, is for the person thinking, then what are you doing if you're not working? I think talk to us a little bit more about that, because I think it has something. It's not that you're not doing something. It's just that how you feel with what you are doing.
Yeah, how to quit working isn't about not doing anything. It's about doing something that you love, and it's about doing something that doesn't feel like work. Because I think that we've created this kind of silly notion in this world that work is a bad thing. I mean, when you look at the scientific definition of work, it's just moving an object from one place, using force to move an object from one place to another. That's like the scientific definition of work. But again, when you step back and look at it from a business standpoint, well, that's really what business is. It's moving something from one place to another in some fashion. And why does that have to be a bad thing? And it goes back to that whole notion that, we've tied all of this stuff together in our brains. Is we've got this whole idea that, well, the way that you make money, and really when I say make money, it means stay alive, right? Because, I mean, as you said, as you so brilliantly pointed out, we have to eat.
Yes.
And we like it.
Right.
And it keeps us alive. Right?
Yes.
It's important.
Right.
So we've tied together this notion of eating, staying alive, and doing a job and getting money. We've kind of tied that all together. And I think that as a society, we've become resentful of the idea that you have to go do something you don't like. And we've unfortunately attached that to the whole concept of work and money. And we've created this just kind of whole negative cacophony of thoughts and emotions around work, which is so unnecessary, because work is just accomplishing something. And when I interview folks on my show, I always ask them the same question. And I ask them the question of, how do you define success? And what everybody tells me, they use different words, they phrase it differently, but what it always comes down to is, I want to make a difference in the world, and I want to have a hell of a good time while I'm doing it. And that's all anybody wants. And yeah, work is involved in that, but that's not a bad thing. That's just how the world is, right? And that's what is required to make a difference in the world, which is all anybody wants. To make a difference in the world, it's work. And it's not bad work.
I agree. And to play games with myself, because this is a game. One of the things that I often do is that I change the words. So instead of saying the word work, I often say provide value. Because for me, that helps me disassociate from any the negative connotations that I've grown up with to the word work. Oh, I gotta go to work. Ooh. Yeah. But hey, I get to provide value. That's more fun. Yeah. And for whether people listening to us or not, realizing it, what you and I are doing right now is work.
Yeah.
For us, as we have now chosen to define it, but I don't feel like I'm quote unquote working. This isn't drudgery. This is where we get an opportunity to document the things that have made a difference and share them freely to those who we hope catch them and use them to make a difference as well.
Absolutely. And podcasting is a lot of work.
Oh,
it is.
Don't tell them
labor
that.
Intensive.
They might actually think this is just effortless for us. I mean, they all know that we just do it, and we're doing it on our cell phone, relaxed at the beach. It's a perfect. Yeah, that I think they. You see, you're destroying their mind right there. You're thinking, oh my God, that's still work. Yes, it's work, guys, but it's fun.
It's like I just let it. Yeah, it's like I just spilled the beans about Santa Claus.
What about Santa Claus?
That his beard isn't naturally gray.
What?
Yeah, it's brown. He dyes it.
Great. Is there anything else that I don't know that I need to know? Will someone please tell me? You know, and it's stuff.
Let's
like
not talk
that.
about the Easter Bunny.
Oh, come on. He's got secrets too?
No, not at all.
Oh, goodness gracious. No, see, right now they're like, yeah, these guys aren't working. That's also code for they wish they could do this and call it work, but that's okay. The point is that you can do this and call this work. So let me ask you this. Where did you get the courage? Because oftentimes, especially people, they have the golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
Where did that courage come from to say, yeah, I got this, and a lot of people would quote unquote kill to be in my position and take and have what I've got. But for me, my standard is higher and this is no longer enough. I'm going to go strike out and do my own thing. Where'd you get that courage from?
I think that I had to generate it. I had to generate it over a long period of time. One of the things that I didn't talk about in when I kind of went over my story is that when I finally left my job, that was probably my third or fourth attempt at starting a business and leaving my job. And it never worked for a number of reasons. There's a number I could list off 15 different reasons why it never worked before, but ultimately the reason it never did was I was too fearful to make a real commitment. Ooh. I was too fearful to actually really, really take bold action and take action that couldn't be reversed. And that's when everything changed for me. And the way that I got that courage was just filling my head with the right influences. You have to be downright almost psychotic about being sure that you put the right influences into your head and that you're getting the right things. And just by listening to a show like this, you're taking a huge step forward. And I'll give you an example. I've written about this in my book and blogged about it and stuff, but one of my obsessions is eliminating media and news from my life. And
you mean that's not good for me?
No,
I thought, but it comes on so frequently. It's got to be great.
Yeah, but there's a switch. There's a switch. And you don't even have to get out of your chair to change the switch.
I know. It's offered. It's free. Oh, come on.
No. It's Zig Ziglar put it best. He said, if somebody came into your house and they dumped a bag of garbage on the living room floor, you'd be mad, right? But the TV comes in and dumps garbage in your living room all the time, and we don't seem to care. And something happened to me recently. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and you probably have heard the news about the things that have been going on over the past month or so in Ferguson. And because I live here, I'm 30 minutes away from that area, and know people in the area, and I even though I've made this commitment to eliminating media from my life, that was a situation where, I wanted to know what was going on because I cared about the situation. And what I found was that I quickly kind of got caught up in this watching the news and kind of the blow by blow and the play by play. What was every celebrity saying about it, and what was going on, and were there protests going on, and was there any additional violence? And I got really caught up into watching that, and it's amazing. I got to see kind of for the first time after eliminating media when I went back, when I backslid, I got to see what happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's like a lever that you can pull to make yourself feel a certain way. And then I finally said, I gotta cut this off.
Right.
Got to cut it. You got to cut it right off, and you got to go back to getting positive things in your head and things that influence and inspire you. And I could tell you that I probably missed business opportunities. I probably screwed a lot of stuff up that week or so that I got really obsessed with that. Really, because I mean, I was in the wrong mindset. I was totally in the wrong place. I was in a place of fear and lack and worry and that whole world is going to hell in a handbasket thought that it's so easy to get caught up in, because when you look at the news, I don't care if it's CNN.com or Huffington Post or whatever it is, you look at it and what is right there in the center, it is the most awful, shocking thing that they can find that's going on, and that's what they put right there in the center. And you're going to go to that thing several times a day, and then you're going to turn it on at night so that they can tell you at the top of the hour the 3 most horrible things that they can come up with that have happened. And the fact of the matter is, for every one of those, I truly believe that most people are good. Like a vast majority of people are good. But what the news does is they highlight the people that are bad and the bad things that are happening in our world with no regard for all of the wonderful things that go on every single day. I mean, just as an example, let's take podcasting. Every single day, thousands, probably tens of thousands of people in this world create podcasts that are completely free, and they have no motive other than to help other people to be better or do something. I mean, it's like, but where's the news headline that says, 10,000 people today created a podcast that changed somebody's life? Or where is that? And podcasting is just one silly example that I pulled out because that's what we happen to be doing at the moment. Right? I mean, there's an infinite number of things that are going on that are so incredibly positive, and we don't get to see them. All we get to see is the horrors that are going on, and then we've created this world where we think that's all that's happening.
Right. You do know what CNN stands for, right?
This is going to be good.
it's constant negative news.
Yeah.
And that's their job isn't to make us feel better. Their job is to sell advertising, and to keep us glued. And and here's the sad truth, I think, and I could be completely wrong. I'm no psychologist. I think the reason we have a hard time disconnecting ourselves from things like that is because somewhere in us, we all want to know that someone is doing worse than we feel at that moment. And when you said it, when you said 1 out of 3 like their job, 2 out of 3 hate it, that's going to be a lot of people.
Yeah.
All the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, for those who have listened this entire time and completely have resonated with your message, who you are, what you're doing, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, how you can help them, and most importantly, how can they find you?
Yeah, thanks for giving me that opportunity, Jay. You can find me at howtoquitworking.com, and if you head over there, you will see lots of resources. I do a weekly show just like this, and I talk to successful entrepreneurs every single week and unravel their secrets. So they've all left a full-time job and started an amazing business that they love. And I also have a book by the same name called How to Quit Working, which you can get on Amazon or you can get on my website at howtoquitworking.com. And I'd love to have you buy the book, and I'd love it if you go to my website, you can see how to get $150 worth of free bonuses, including a free video training series on how to quit your job and start a business.
Nice. Free. I love that. That's like, it always fits the budget.
Everybody loves free.
Excellent, sir. I thank you for taking the time to invest here with the Cashflow Diary audience. As a quick last message. So now you've got your superhero tights on, you got your mask, your cape, you are ready to go. What would you say to the old Jeff, the alter ego Jeff? What would the new superhero say to the old alter ego, knowing what you know today?
Oh, that is such a good question. And the answer is clear. Quit being so damn scared. It's all gonna be fine.
Yeah, I can understand that one for sure.
Even when it doesn't seem like it's fine, it's still fine. And it's gonna be fine. It's gonna continue to be fine.
Awesome, sir. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, guess what time it is? It's time to move at the speed of instruction. You have requested it. You're looking for it. You're trying to figure out, how can I get out of my job? Well, it's easy. Go to howtoquitworking.com. Get started today, not tomorrow, right now. Yeah, I know you're listening on a mobile device. It has a pause button. It has a website, Safari or Chrome or whatever you'd like. And if you got one of those new iPhone 6 or 6 Pluses, you even got more screen room to look at it. So you have the ability to go out there to get started today. Don't wait till tomorrow. The law of diminishing intent will come up and sneak up on you. Now is the time to act. Move at the speed of instruction, as you've heard me say before. I look forward to talking to all of you guys again soon. Until next time.